Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the podcast. I'm not Coco.
That seems really loud.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm still not Coco.
And I'm still not Daltz. And
Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year. It is the first day of 2020 if you're listening to us in real time. A brand new season of the podcast, season 3. I can't believe we've been doing this for 3 years and not getting paid.
Usually when something like this is not as successful, people stop doing it after a while. But we're going to continue doing it despite its lack of success.
Because at least we entertain ourselves.
Right. If nothing else, it's fun and also tax write-offs.
Is it though? Because...
Every movie we go to, tax write-off.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
And we can write off Disney Plus, which
Right.
we are subscribing to now. And today we are going to discuss The Mandalorian.
So The Mandalorian, so thank you for handling the intro that I was supposed to handle because I forgot that I was supposed to do that. But
Well, I mean, the segue was there. It was ripe for the picking like nanners. So
I think what happened there is I got thrown off by my very loud voice, and then I just got carried away with that
I'm
part
sorry.
of it.
I'm sorry. We can redo this if you want.
No, I think we're good. Okay. So The Mandalorian was one of the shows that we decided to watch on Disney Plus.
Because everybody decided to watch it. Full disclosure, I got Disney Plus for me, even though Daltz has 2 kids who grew up on like Disney cartoons.
They love it.
And they completely love it, but I totally just got it for me so I could have access to Star Wars and Marvel stuff anytime I want it. And The Mandalorian has paid dividends in the first 2 months of our Disney Plus subscription, let me tell you.
So tell the listener what The Mandalorian is about and which channel is it on inside the Disney Plus universe, etc.
So if you've been living under a rock and you do not subscribe to Disney Plus and you haven't heard anything about this,
or you live in Canada and you can't get Disney Plus yet,
right, or anywhere else in the world, The Mandalorian is an 8-episode series so far. Season 2 is beginning in the fall of 2020, which I'm very excited about. It follows a bounty hunter who is not Mandalorian by race, but Mandalorian by creed. He joined the guild. Basically, he's like Boba Fett from the original trilogy, but he's not Boba Fett. And
he's got shinier armor.
He does have shinier armor. In the first episode, he was assigned to collect something for a shady underworld client. That thing turned out to be Baby Yoda, which is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. And
which is also a bit of a shock to see that. It's like if you're not prepared for the series, it's like, well, wait a minute, Yoda was a baby at one point? Like I just imagine him being the old grizzled, used Kermit the Frog.
Well, apparently Baby Yoda is 50 years old, so he's
even
like,
as a baby.
As a baby, so because I think Yoda in the series was like 900 years old or something.
Yeah.
So
I always imagine him to be old.
So if you could be, that's your age. You could be Baby Yoda right now. So we would not be together if you were Baby Yoda.
There are a lot of directions we could go with that,
Yeah, exactly.
with that joke, but I don't think we will.
So the Mandalorian successfully collects Baby Yoda, takes him back to the creepy German guy who wanted him, and then gets really worried that they're going to kill or otherwise harm Baby Yoda, steals Baby Yoda back, and then the rest of the series is him kind of being on the lam with Baby Yoda, trying to keep Baby Yoda safe.
He's a Mandalorian with a conscience.
He is.
He's a tender, loving Mandalorian.
I mean, look at Baby Yoda. How could you not want to protect Baby Yoda? Baby Yoda is like the cutest thing I've ever seen.
So let's just talk about his lack of professionalism. First of all, he gets a mission, and
he cashes the checks.
He cashes the checks, but fails to deliver on the mission, which is to hand over the package. The package just happens to be a young Kermit the Frog, and he just doesn't. He's not buying it.
I mean,
his heart got involved.
He did hand Baby Yoda over, but then he took Baby Yoda back. So I mean,
he had second thoughts.
He did complete the mission.
Yeah.
So,
but still, it's sort of unprofessional to
Yeah.
you know, deliver a product and then say, oh, no, wait a minute.
Right.
I like the product. I'm going to take it with me. Thank you very much.
Right, exactly.
Like, you can imagine if that happened when in the gold mining era.
I'm going to keep this and make a necklace.
Right.
You know, I'm going to give it to the wife.
Right. I discovered this. I'm going to keep it.
Yeah.
I'm not satisfied with my $1 a day in wages.
maybe, if Bernie had been around then, we could have like unionized the miners and then
This is what makes Coco and Adults, the podcast, so interesting, is the tangents we go on that have nothing to do with the subject that you clicked on.
That's why we have one Swedish listener.
Right. Poor guy. And he can't get up to change the channel.
Because he's drunk.
Right, because he's drunk.
Aquavit. So.
Right, or whatever they drink in Sweden.
Right. So I what did you think about The Mandalorian? Because full disclosure, part 2, Daltz doesn't really care, but I care.
You mean in general or about The Mandalorian?
In general, about like Star Wars, Marvel,
no, but
stuff
not
like
in
that.
life. Not like
Right.
I don't
Well,
have a laissez-faire kind of attitude.
You are Gen X. You do have like a lot of ennui. So take a shot. People who drink when we use big words.
I don't know what that means. That sounds like
ennui.
Swedish meatballs or something.
Ennui. You've heard ennui.
Okay.
Anyways, so I don't know what I was just saying. What did you think
So you were
about
asking
it?
me what I thought.
Full disclosure, Daltz doesn't care, but he watched the whole thing because I watch it, earning valuable relationship points.
Well, it's all about the relationship points, people, I got to tell you. And there's a ledger on the fridge where we put tally marks, and I'm down quite a few. So it's Mandalorian week here at the Coco and Daltz household.
We might be going to see Rise of Skywalker tonight, too.
Yes.
So
yes.
Daltz is really racking up the points.
I need to earn them because it's the beginning of the new year. So, you know, you got to start strong. So Mandalorian, I really like the concept. I was in the Star Wars days. So Boba Fett, if I'm not mistaken, shows up in Empire Strikes Back.
I believe so, yes.
So,
Yeah, because he's looking for Han Solo.
He's looking for Han
Jabba
Solo.
the Hutt.
Yeah, and he puts him in the
carbon freezing
frozen cheese thing or whatever it is. Yeah.
I love you.
What?
You're supposed to say, I know.
Oh,
That's what Leia says to Han before he gets frozen.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. I thought we were having a personal moment here on the podcast.
We're going to edit that part out.
So I liked Boba Fett. I was, even though he was kind of shady, I liked his ambiguity. Like, which side was he on? And he was just a guy for money, or did he have a guy for, like, he ended up, no spoiler here, falling into a pit with it takes 1,000 years to digest you, or something like some horrible fate. The quicksand with teeth. The
Sarlacc.
Thank you.
Yep.
And there's no lack of the Boba Fett there. I liked Boba Fett. I liked that idea of this was like not the Force. Like everything in Star Wars seemed like it was so obvious to me. Darth Vader was black. He was the bad guy. He was wearing the black hat. And Luke Skywalker in the first days was all in white. So he was the good guy in the white hat. And it was so Western to me. It was so not contrived, but obvious. And so when you bring a guy in who's green and is sort of like, what side is he on? I'm not sure. So I like that idea. So this is background on The Mandalorian for me. I like the Mandalorian idea. I like the concept. I'm not sure I was buying into the whole Mandalorian with a conscience thing because surely this happened to him earlier.
He had to deliver people to shady clients.
And kids probably, or stray animals, or something that would pull at your heartstrings. And then all of a sudden, he's a human. So I wasn't quite buying that. And it's not like he's a rookie Mandalorian, like trying to earn his wings or whatever you earn in Mandalorian world.
He's fresh out of Mandalore High.
Right. And this is his initiation. You know, he's cleaning the locker room out for the Mandalorian team. And he's like, hey, we'll give you one more assignment. By the way, you go get the young Kermit the Frog. So I had trouble with that. But I really liked a lot of things about this series. So I liked the fact that we don't see the Mandalorian until the last episode, and that's not really a spoier.
He keeps his helmet on.
He keeps his helmet on, which like a good hockey player should.
Right.
And he's not a really likable guy, like other than the fact that he's got this soft spot for Kermit the Frog. He's really not, he doesn't say hi or goodbye or, thanks or anything like that. So as a Canadian, I was offended by his lack of manners. But truly, I think that there's a good career or a good character arc there. So he's developed along the way. So I like that part of it. I also liked the Gina Carano character who came in toward the end of episode, I think it was episode 5 or 6.
She first showed up in episode 4, and then she came back for episodes 7 and 8.
Right, and I thought she was great. She was a kick bum woman who had was actually a very good actor. Like Gina Carano, I know her from and people who don't maybe not know, she's from the MMA world, and she rose to quick fame in that sport, and decided to become an actor. And she's really good in this. Like you can't tell that she wasn't a trained actor when you look at her. She's got facial expressions, and she's got pausing, and there's all sorts of things that actors who are not trained to be actors, they don't do. They just they read stilted dialogue and stuff like that. And you can tell that she either got some coaching or the directing was really good for her. So I really liked her, and I really liked Apollo Creed.
Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers, who is another bad guy, good guy. We don't know in this world. There aren't really good guys and bad guys in this bounty hunter type world. So I like that, and those are the things that I liked about it. The characters, those characters, drove it for me. The story to me seemed kind of pedestrian. It was, conflicted opinion or conflicted heartfelt emotions about the baby and his job, and like there was nothing new there to me. And the special effects were very good, but it didn't blow me away or anything like that. I will say that there's a couple of moments. So in the last I think it was the last episode where the two stormtroopers are on the horse things or whatever they call those.
Yeah, the speeders or whatever.
Yeah, that were in the
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi. Thank you. I thought that was really good comic relief, which you don't really see in Star Wars movies. Like it was good back and forth banter with these two guys casually. Like you said, it looked like they were just kind of hanging out and having a smoke.
Right.
And then these guys walk up, and it's Carl Weathers and Gina Carano and the Mandalorian confronting them, and they look like they're two guys getting $14.95 an hour,
right.
Standing outside.
Right, and they were good because it was like everybody who's ever at work when they're waiting to be allowed entry back into the city, and they have to wait to be allowed in, so they're standing there and they're kind of like trash talking their boss and trying to shoot like a beer can, but because they're stormtroopers, they have crap aim, so they can't. Right. It's sitting right there and they're not hitting it.
Which is a great nod to stormtroopers throughout the entire series, right? Like totally. it's this stereotype where Luke Skywalker peers around the corner and shoots 5 stormtroopers in one blast, and his head's sticking out and everything like that, and nobody can hit him.
Right. Totally.
So it's a great nod toward the whole, like that's a real nice inside joke, I think. Yeah. Anyway, I've been talking now for almost 12 minutes. So tell me, Coco, what you thought of this show and series that was your idea to watch.
So I freaking loved it. Yeah. Before I get started with my opinion, I will say I think maybe what they were trying to do, because they did delve a little bit into the Mandalorian's background. Like he was a foundling. His parents died. They were killed by droids in, like the Siege of Mandalore, the Battle of Mandalore, or whatever. And so he was a foundling and was raised by like Mandalorian bounty hunters. So I think maybe they were trying to do, because like in the very last episode, another Mandalorian says to him, well, Baby Yoda is now a foundling, so you have to keep him. So I think maybe they were trying to make the connection that he felt a connection to Baby Yoda and didn't want to hand him over because...
This is why you've been unprofessional in your mission.
Right, exactly, because
in your DNA.
He felt the connection because of the foundling thing. So I think that's what they were trying to do, but I don't know, I could be wrong. But anyways.
I think that's good, yeah.
So,
let's go with that.
Yeah, so I loved it. It was action-packed. The special effects were good. I liked Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian. Gina Carano and Carl Weathers were fantastic. I would totally watch a spin-off series with one or both of them.
Yeah, me too.
Like you said, Gina Carano, it wasn't obvious that I'm Madonna and I'm trying to be an actress now. Like it was, she definitely brought depth to that character.
I believed her. I believed her in that role, which is the whole idea of acting.
And Carl Weathers in the last 2 episodes, he had some fantastic lines. Like when Baby Yoda was healing him from the venomous flying dragon that injured him, Baby Yoda put his hands on the injured part of his body, and Carl Weathers was like, he's trying to eat me. And it was just so funny. Like he was really good in the last couple episodes. I enjoyed that a lot.
The last 2 episodes really kicked it down for me. Like I was wondering what they were going to do, because it seemed like as we went along, each one was a self-contained episode, and it didn't seem like a series to me. It seemed like, well, I could watch these sort of out of order if I wanted to.
Right.
As long as I watched the first one, then I could scramble the rest of them. But then when we got down to the stretch, and like it seemed like it was more like a traditional TV type show in the beginning, but then it turned into like a Netflixy kind of thing near the end, where you had to binge watch the last couple.
Yeah, we accidentally ended up watching 7 and 8 together. Like, we had been watching them weekly when the episodes dropped, and then we accidentally ended up watching 7 and 8 on the same day. And I think that was perfect because it's basically a 2-part episode.
Yeah.
Even though they're episodes 7 and 8, not episodes 7.1 and 7.2.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't the first 4 episodes were really great. I was really into it. Episode 5 I liked too, but episodes 5 and 6, it also just kind of seemed like, okay, well, now the Mandalorian's on the run with this baby, and he needs money because he needs to eat and he needs to keep his ship, in fuel or whatever. So especially episode 6, but to a lesser extent episode 5, I was kind of like, okay, well, this is great. Now this is just another space adventure, because they were both kind of like, he needed to get money, so he joined like a team of mercenaries to break somebody out of like a prison ship. And they were good episodes, but it just didn't feel like it furthered the storyline at all.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and like, you barely saw Baby Yoda in those episodes, and I need all the Baby Yoda I can possibly get because I freaking love Baby Yoda. He's adorable. So episode 6, and to a lesser extent episode 5, like, they were fine. Like, I enjoyed watching them, but I don't necessarily need to watch them again. The only thing I will say, though, is that so far everything this show has done in 8 episodes has come back later. So I don't know if later on,
see some stuff
like
later.
maybe in season 2, like the characters who were in episodes 5 and 6 might come back later on. But yeah, I loved it. It was fantastic. And at the end of episode 8, I was just like, I can't wait another like 9 or 10 months for season 2. Like, I need this right now.
And so season 2 is going to happen.
It is going to happen. It's coming out this fall. I will also say Jon Favreau is the mastermind of The Mandalorian, and Disney should have just let him do all of their Star Wars stuff, because we still have not seen The Rise of Skywalker, but I know what happens in it because I don't care about spoilers. And I think at this point it is extremely obvious and safe to say that J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, and Kathleen Kennedy had no plan for this trilogy of movies whatsoever, but clearly Favreau went into The Mandalorian with a plan.
Yeah.
It wasn't just him like, what am I going to write today?
Yeah.
And, each episode was just adventures in space. We have Baby Yoda in the beginning to get people into it. And then, clearly he had a plan. He mapped out the season. He knew what was going on. I would be surprised if that weren't the case for season 2.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's going to direct at least one of them, I read.
Yeah.
So I don't know how involved. When I'm inferring from that is I don't know how many he's going to direct. He said, "Well, I'm going to direct at least 1 or 2." So if there's another 8 episodes and he's not directing those other 6, then that could be an interesting change of the plan.
Well, he didn't direct all the episodes in this season.
But he wrote them all, though, right? Or he wrote most of them.
Probably.
Yeah, because I think he did, because every time I see Jon Favreau's name, I think of the guy from Swingers.
Yeah.
Which was 40 years ago probably now.
Right.
But him and Vince Vaughn picking up the chicks and everybody's money and all that sort of stuff. Like, I think of him every time I see him in a Marvel movie. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, he brought a plan to this, and it's obvious. And he brought I don't think it's any accident that he brought the Marvel sensibilities to this franchise. Like, Marvel, everything he's done in Marvel, perhaps save the Iron Man 2 or something like that, he's been pretty good in the Marvel world. So I think that was one of the attractions to Disney too, is like, well, let's get somebody who knows what they're doing, Jon Favreau, because it has been, I know we've talked about this, and I think that Disney has done a very poor job of managing the Star Wars franchise.
Yes, definitely.
At a whole, like the movies that we've seen since Disney took over they've been more packaging than substance to me. Like, they've had really great trailers, but then you get into the movie and it's way too long, or there's disjointed characters, or it's the same movie as Star Wars, which I think of. So I think that this is a really good sign that they're doing this kind of thing, and hopefully there are other series, as you've told me, about Obi-Wan and everything else that are coming up, that maybe they'll salvage it with the small screen instead of trying to, because they've ruined it on the big screen for me. Like, we're going to go see The Rise of Skywalker, but it's going to be the same movie, and I've read middling reviews about it too, and it's 2.5 hours long. Like, who wants to sit through a 2.5 hour long Star Wars movie?
Right.
I mean, that's crazy.
I think The Last Jedi was pretty long too. I think The Last Jedi was over 2 hours also, and it was 2 hours of nothing.
Right.
Like at the end of the movie, they were in the same place they were at in the beginning of the movie. Like,
Yeah, I think somebody else needs to be in charge of that series because it's just...
yeah, Kathleen Kennedy has not done a good job of being a steward for the Star Wars universe, like as opposed to the guy at Marvel, who Disney put in charge at Marvel. Like he was great.
He's
like
doing it, yeah.
They had a plan for this is how all these movies are going to tie in, and this is how we're going to introduce these characters. And
he also had, perhaps to her defense, but the guy at Marvel had a lot more to work with because there was all these established characters and all these established storylines and a very passionate fan base for those kinds of things. Having been, when I was a kid, an Iron Man fan of the comic books, like there was a lot of depth in each one of those stories. So you're starting from a stronger point, but I agree with you that the Star Wars series has just gone downhill since Disney took it over. And I think that's also part of when you have somebody as brilliant as George Lucas who's in charge. And sure, the second three, whatever they were, he was in charge too much by the sounds of it. I haven't seen those, and I'm not going to because they're so terrible. But it sounds like somebody should have said no to him there.
The thing about, I can say a lot about George Lucas, but the thing about him is that he went into the second trilogy with a plan.
Right.
Now, he had all the freaking money in the world. He could have hired people to write and direct and not been so hands-on-y, and maybe that trilogy would have been a little bit better because he's not a great writer and he's definitely not a great director.
But he's a storyteller.
But he's a storyteller.
He's a very
and
good storyteller.
He had a plan on what he wanted to do. And maybe if he would have handed off like total hands-on control, like the execution could have been better.
Yeah.
But like I said, clearly for this current trilogy that's ending with The Rise of Skywalker, they didn't have a plan.
Well, and where I was going with that is that you need somebody who's got... You can't have creativity by committee, and I think that's what happened with these these Disney movies. Is that you've got so many people are so interested in it. Bob Iger's like, "Hey, how's it going with the new Star Wars movie?" You know, like stopping in. Whereas you didn't have that before. You just had George Lucas making all the decisions. Now, like I said, in the second trilogy, or however you want to frame it, he needed somebody to come in and say no. Like I think that was probably. He didn't have any guardrails in those three in those three movies, so he needed some guardrails. Whereas in the earlier first three, that I called them the first three, he had, in the first idea was his, he just had, the guardrail was his budget. He didn't have a lot of money to work with, so he wasn't doing all these crazy things. The second and third ones were more successful increasingly, but there was still pressure to be good, and there was still some like, hey, let's keep this fairly restricted.
Yeah, and he also had, help. Like Lawrence Kasdan, I think.
Right, Lawrence Kasdan was a big help there.
Yeah, he did what, like the Big Chill? Is that what Lawrence Kasdan did?
Yep.
And he did like Grand Canyon. So this is like an established.
This is a Hollywood guy.
Yeah, person. Yeah. So it wasn't just George Lucas out there. I'm gonna make all these movies, and then they end up like, well, they're really not that great. Right. I actually went back and I rewatched 2 of the prequel trilogy movies.
Research for this podcast.
For this podcast, and also in preparation for our impending watch of The Rise of Skywalker. And they're not.
They're not great, right?
They're not great.
Yeah, see, and I haven't seen them, and I'm going to hold off on seeing them. To me, that was where the series also, or the series of movies, the franchise, it jumped the shark a little bit because you had Samuel L. Jackson in it. You had Owen McGregor in it.
He's got the Obi-Wan series coming to Disney Plus, which I'm watching. So.
You had Natalie Portman in it. You know what I mean? Like you had all these established Hollywood stars. That was part of the beauty of the original 3 series for me, was that you had Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and at the time
pre-Indiana Jones Harrison Ford,
pre-superstar Harrison Ford, just a guy starting out, and he was a carpenter. Like you had all these kind of really working man actors, and then all of a sudden it blows up with all these Hollywood stars, and it's just not going to be as good.
And that kind of felt like what The Last Jedi was to me. Like Benicio del Toro, he didn't need to be in that movie.
Right,
like that whole subplot could have been cut out with him in it.
Right.
And then Laura Dern. Why did Laura Dern need to be in that movie? Like Leia could have been
her character. That
could have been Leia as Admiral Holdo.
Right.
Like Leia could have totally done that. Instead, Leia just kind of hung out and didn't do anything. And now we don't have any Leia at all because she's dead.
Yeah,
so like that was a total waste of Carrie Fisher before she died, which obviously nobody knew that was going to happen.
Right.
But so The Last Jedi kind of felt like shoehorning people into that, unnecessarily.
Well, and we've talked about this whole Solo story,
Right.
And that's sort of, that movie seems to be representative of the entire franchise with Disney to me. Is like they didn't like the director. They brought in Ron Howard. The lead actor had to have acting lessons, quote unquote. I mean, all the stuff that came around this, and it's like that's just not. If George Lucas is doing that movie, none of this is happening. Now, I don't know what other bad things are happening because George Lucas is in charge, but I'm sure that stuff is not happening. You got one person in charge and setting the direction for a movie, instead of all these people dropping in and saying, "Oh, how about we do this? How about we do that?"
Well, all the movies.
How about Chewie is actually a man-eating creature? Right. It's like, what? I didn't need that.
Like all the Star Wars movies under Disney have had like famously troubled productions.
Right.
They just got really lucky that Rogue One and The Force Awakens, they were able to have a really excellent product at the end. I know how you feel about The Force Awakens.
But they got a good bump from the novelty of it too, right?
Right, exactly. And then, Solo ended up being okay at best, and then The Last Jedi was trash. So they got really, everything has been really bad behind the scenes. They just got really lucky that the first two happened to end up being really good, and like fans really liked them. And then, but that's not sustainable. Like you can't have bad productions, and still end up with good products consistently. And so I
also wonder if like the first two had a little bit of momentum going from previous incarnations of creativity, and they weren't just solely Disney's ideas and Disney's productions. There had to be some leftover from Lucas and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I believe I read somewhere that when he sold everything to Disney, he said, I have, stories for another trilogy. And they were like, nah, we're good, bro. And I'm like, well, gee, I wish they would have actually taken his ideas, because maybe we would have ended up with not the crap that we've gotten, So
Mandalorian, to bring it back around, is saving Disney's management of Star Wars, it seems like. And maybe, like I mentioned earlier, maybe the small screen is where they need to concentrate, where they don't have to make a 2.5 hour long movie. They can make 8 45-minute long episodes.
Right. And the Star Wars universe is so vast and rich that, I don't want to be watching like Star Wars series for the rest of my life, but you could do a lot.
Are you sure about that?
Like, well, I think eventually people are going to get, oversaturation. I would watch the Gina Carano, Apollo Creed buddy comedy, but there's a lot that you can do in a series. Like, you don't need to keep making movies for everybody.
Right.
Like, you can totally just keep making series, and people can have it or not.
Well, and I think also Disney is going to have a hard look at this now because of the streaming service, because of Disney Plus. They're going to need programming. They're going to need, like Netflix does very well, they keep coming up with new stuff. Now, whether the new stuff is good or not, it's not always good. How many productions does Netflix do a year, and how many get nominated for Oscars? Like, the percentage there is microscopic. But I think Disney's still going to try to entice people to get into that subscriber service, because there's a lot of good money in that. You control everything. They've got the back end streaming service with the BAM purchase that they did years ago, and they've got the front end with all the content that they're producing, and they control everything. So the costs there are very contained. Whereas if you're buying movies like Amazon does a lot, then you're relying on distribution, you're relying on profit sharing and all that sort of stuff. So I think that increasingly as we go ahead, and the Disney Plus thing is really cool. Like, I'm not a shill for Disney by any stretch of the imagination, but
even though, full disclosure, part 3, we both used to work for Disney.
We both used to work for Disney. So I am a big fan of Disney Plus. I have 2 daughters who are hard to satisfy sometimes in terms of what they want to watch, and there's always something on there that they want to watch.
We got to watch Home Alone on Christmas.
Which is how cool is that?
Right?
Which is a fantastic movie, by the way. I recommend Home Alone.
30 years after it was released.
Yes, exactly. This just in. But I think that there'll be increasingly more demands for content, and I think that they should, and they're probably doing this, Disney, does this need to be a movie, or can this be a series?
Yeah, exactly. Like, maybe Solo would have worked as a series.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
And the Obi-Wan thing was originally at one time
supposed to be a movie.
Right? So now they're going to a series. Like the Boba Fett thing, there was also an origin story there potentially, right? And now maybe people are maybe people thought that the Mandalorian thing was a Boba Fett origin story.
Yeah.
But that could be, maybe there's a way to do that, although it's too similar to the Mandalorian. But I'm sure there are going to be characters introduced, because this is the Disney way. Is so you've got Gina Carano and Carl Weathers. They're going to get their own spin-off, I imagine, because just the way that ended, and I don't want to spoil it, but just the way that their pairing ended, it set it up to me in my mind. Like, I'm looking at all the Jon Favreau directed Marvel movies and the way they end, and I could see a pattern there that, okay, they're setting this up for something else, and it's going to be a spin-off kind of thing. So, yeah, I think that the change in direction is good.
Definitely. And Disney Plus, please give us more Baby Yoda. Like, more Baby Yoda. We need more Baby Yoda.
So do we want to talk a little bit about Disney Plus itself? Because I think it's worth talking about. It's how much a month?
So I prepaid for the whole year, which with tax was just under $75. I think, which I did the math, it works out to like $6.25 a month. If you pay it monthly, I think it's like $8.99 a month.
Okay.
So you end up basically getting like around 2 months free if you prepay for the year, which I went ahead and did, because I was like, you know what, if we hate this, whatever, in a year I won't renew. Like, it's fine. But we're renewing next year.
Yeah.
Like,
we're keeping up this pace.
Like, I'm getting the Mandalorian season 2. Like, I want to see that Obi-Wan series. I want to see that Cassian Andor from Rogue One prequel series. Like, we're keeping Disney Plus.
So
like,
Disney Plus is all the Disney movies. It's it's Marvel movies. It's the Star Wars movies. It's National Geographic.
It's Pixar.
And it's Pixar, and it's the Hustler channel, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like nanners.
Nudies and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm pretty
totally.
sure. So the key for me is going to be, for Disney Plus, is that this is fantastic. Like, you got this bounty, and you can scroll through the page and you see all these great movies from my childhood, and you know, the Love Bug and the Apple Dumpling Gang and all these classics.
Which we tried to watch like a year ago, I think, on Netflix, and it was horrible. And we turned it off after like 15 minutes. We were like, even Don Knotts can't save this.
Right.
Like, I
Don
freaking
Knotts
love Don Knotts, and I was like, nope, I'm not watching this.
Don Knotts and Tim Conway. That's a different movie when you're 5.
Right. You know, than when you're 40.
Right. As it should be, actually.
Right, totally.
I watched Apple Dumpling Gang the other day, and it was awesome. But so there's this huge depth of movies, and it brings back memories, and you know, the computer wore tennis shoes with Kurt Russell and all this sort of stuff. So the challenge next year, when renewals come up, is to have new content that dazzles similarly, because you're not going to be able to rely on that archival content forever, right? You've got Fantasia, you've got Inside Out, you've got Cars, you've got all this great stuff that is immediately downloadable.
But not Song of the South.
Which, what?
Is like this, like,
is this like racist?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like this super racist thing from the 60s that is in the Disney vault and is never, ever coming out ever again. Yeah.
Well, props to not putting everything out there, I guess, because things change.
But I really hope they stop with the live action remakes.
Yes.
Like, I know they did that because they needed content for the streaming service, but I'm like,
cash grab.
You know, the original Aladdin was fine. We don't need a live action remake of it. The original Lion King, fantastic.
Yeah.
We don't need a live action remake of that. Like,
yeah.
So
when
stop.
Seth Rogen is in Disney movies, then you know you've gone a bridge too far.
Right.
Like, he was the pig in The Lion King. My daughters and I went to see it at the drive-in theater, which is a perfect place to go see that kind of movie, because you don't really need to pay attention, because you've seen the movie before.
Right.
You know the story. And it was an unnecessary remake. And this is where I'm concerned about Disney. Like, I hope they keep it within the guardrails again on the streaming service and on the big screen, because people still want to go to movies. They still want to be impressed and dazzled and sit in the luxurious seats that fold back and get $19 popcorn and stuff like that. They still seem like they want to do it, but they're only going to do it if it's original, or if it's an original take on an old premise. Like, sure, there's nothing but sequels out there, and they're flopping left and right. But if you come up with a new way of like, I thought that, for example, the women in Ghostbusters, I thought that was a good idea. Now, it was poorly executed, and it turned out to be a terrible movie. But that kind of different take, rather than just make another, like, just make Men in Black
international.
Yeah. Like, come on, do we really need to do that? And I know why they do it, because the sequels inevitably do better business than the originals.
They keep making sequels until they don't make money.
Right. And that's when it stops. Exactly. Like, did we really need all those Lethal Weapon movies? I mean, the first Lethal Weapon movie was fantastic.
You have a total hang up on Lethal Weapon.
I do.
This is not the first time we've talked about Lethal Weapon.
No, and the first one was so different, and then the second one, it couldn't be like, how do you have the insane cop do more insane things? Like, it's just on the edge cop.
Especially when you're the LAPD and you've already got like a PR problem anyway.
Right.
So now you've got this guy out there like a loose cannon.
Yeah. So thumbs up for Mandalorian. Thumbs up for, I don't know if we can do thumbs up, but I might have Roger Ebert come in.
Is he dead though?
His legal system might come after me. But I think that we liked Mandalorian and we like Disney Plus. What are your thoughts here, Coco?
I love The Mandalorian.
Love.
Love The Mandalorian. Love Baby Yoda. Need all of the Baby Yoda, all of the Mandalorian, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So love it. All my thumbs and toes and fingers up.
All your digits are up.
Yeah. And then
Nanners,
all my nanners up. And then, yeah, Disney Plus. I mean, you've got us for life because as long as you keep putting out like Mandalorian seasons and Obi-Wan series, like you got our money, Disney.
Well, and also Disney, if there was anybody that was going to take on Netflix and Amazon Prime,
right,
then it's Disney, and they've done it. I mean, they've done it in a big way.
But I will say, we are done with streaming services. We're not getting any
We're not
more.
buying anymore?
We got Netflix, we got Amazon, we got Disney Plus. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm done. I don't need Hulu.
Yeah.
Even though you can package Hulu and ESPN Plus with Disney Plus, like no. I don't need Hulu. I don't need ESPN Plus.
Well, there are not enough hours in the day to watch this stuff.
Right, like Apple TV or whatever.
Yeah.
Like we don't need that. Like I'm good. We got plenty of content with the 3 we got.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you. I'm totes with you.
So unless it's like streaming Cookie Monster TV or something for you, like
Well, that would be great, actually.
yeah, we could.
I would
Although
do
you
that.
would just want like a streaming cookie service.
I would take that, actually, some sort of subscription service, which I know exists because you got it for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got you the cookie subscription like a year ago, and you were like, eh. So
It's because they were too exotic. They were making like lemon meringue cookies and
What's wrong with lemon meringue cookies?
I want just chocolate chip. I want like butterscotch. I want peanut butter chip. Like I'm a pretty basic guy when it comes to cookies. And I don't want no stinking raisins in my cookies.
Oh yeah, raisins are the worst. Like when you think it's a chocolate chip and then you bite into it and it's a raisin, that's like the worst day of your life.
That's a betrayal of
That totally
treasonal
is.
scale.
Yeah,
That's just there's a whole movie franchise to be made about that, I think.
And Jon Favreau could probably make it interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Jon Favreau. New respect for Jon Favreau. Props to Jon Favreau for The Mandalorian and all that it brings. So they're playing us off. So we got a new producer this year. I don't know. We should probably talk about him in another episode. But
Yes.
he's been very hard on us, and we've been doing lots of rehearsals, and also he makes us do this weird trust thing, with the trust falls and everything like that. So I'm not really.
Oh, I haven't done that.
Yeah. Well, you should go to a meeting. You should come to the rehearsal meetings.
I got too many other jobs.
Right, that's true. I don't. And so now the music is playing louder, so that means we really got to go. So for another episode of the Coco and Daltz podcast, thanks for joining us. Happy New Year. I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Daltz.